In this video, I'm going to reflect on changing face of global governance, particularly focusing on how international institutions, the World Bank and IMF play a vital role in global institutions such as economic growth, poverty reductions, and inequality, and how emergence power the BRICS have evolved over time. Global governance can be understood as the sum of many ways individual and institution, public and private, manage their common affairs through both formal institutions and informal agreements to coordinate actions and resolve conflict. To understand today's global system, we need to go back to its origins, specifically the Bretton Wood system and its institutions. After the Second World War, the world nations were in need of the system of economic order and international cooperation that would recover from the devastation of the war and foster long-term global growth. In 1944, the Bretton Wood Conference, officially known as the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, was held in the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Wood and attended by 730 delegates from 44 nations. In this conference, many articles or agreements were produced and International Monetary Fund and the World Bank were founded. After that, in October 1947, the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade were signed in Geneva as a result of this conference. The essence of the conference can be regarded as the creation of this institution, were the key player in the Bretton Woods system and the ground of power dynamics by liberal world order. Negotiated in 1944, these two powerful institutions were effected in 1946 and largely shaped by the US and other Western allies. World Bank rooted from two development institutions, namely IBRD and International Development Association. Here is notified that IBRD was created on the development pillar under the Bretton Woods system. World Bank focused on providing financial assistance for the reconstruction of war-ravaged nations and economic development of poor countries. World Bank intended its multilateral public lending for both private loan and business to domestic and foreign investment. In this way, they believed the more the flows of capital and the greater return on investment. They began lending loans to global South nations after the 1950s. For IMF, it intended to maintain assistance of its exchange rate centered on the US dollar and gold to promote monetary cooperation and financial stability. Under the Bretton Woods monetary system based on the embedded liberalism, the nations can manage their own economies and currency adjustment with IMF's approval. In 1971, the Bretton Woods system collapsed after the Princeton Resolution ended the dollar convertibility to gold, and both IMF and World Bank are still operating today. Over time, this institution plays a major role in development finance and economic policy making, particularly in the global South countries, and governing structure of this institution were based on weighting both. It enabled the larger UN nations to influence issues of economic development through their participation on the board of governors. It leads to power imbalance because decision-making power within the institution depends on how much money a nation contributes in the structure. Vividly, it left poor nations behind with little voice. Another growing criticism of Bretton Woods institutions are on their assistance, which is often comes with conditions. Both IMF and World Bank loan called structural adjustment loan come with string attached. For instance, a key government organization and IMF agree with the country with economic travel to implement obligatory policy reform within their limited periods. In the first few decades, the IMF's conditionality mainly focused on reforming budget deficit reduction, restricted monetary policy, and exchange rate devaluation in line with their mandate. This means IMF initial conditions were mainly intended for the removal of tariff and other import restrictions, but later they expanded to cover capital account liberalization. So IMF left to the rise of structural adjustment program because the country have to adapt new level policy, especially privatization, deregulation, and trade and financial liberalization. Despite this reform during 1993 to 2007, IMF's conditionality remained highly interested, and the program continues to describe specific policy reducing national autonomy. There are non-binding social spending flows and poverty reduction targeted, but the goals are frequently unmet. We can see sub-Saharan African countries as an example in which nearly 50% of the social spending conditions were not implemented. and whereas future targets were restricted and unmet. By the late 20th and early 20th centuries, many global South countries have grown frustrated. They criticized the lack of the transparency and accountability, legitimacy crisis, and developmented governance structures in the Bretton Wood Institutions. And in 2005, a major turning point came during in 2008 global financial crisis, which exposed serious flaws in the global financing system and shook confidence in the institution to safeguard it. The crisis revealed the limit of Western-led governance and strengthened call for reform. In this context, the BRICS mechanism, which 5 countries from different parts of the world, namely emerged in 2009 as a powerful coalition and now has shown remarkable progress. These countries were quite different with their own cultures, political reign, and economic reality. The BRICS were found as an economic bloc promising emerging markets and as a political statement a more multipolar world where power is more evenly distributed. They come from a geopolitical and geoeconomic basis emphasis South-South cooperation, mutual respect for sovereignty and development assistance without any heavy conditionalities. To support this vision, the BRICS created new institutions such as the New Development Bank, (ADB), as an alternative to the Bretton Wood Institution, providing funding for the developing countries. So now, are we witnessing a shift from unipolar world, dominated by the U.S. hegemonies, toward a more multiple orders, where emerging economies like China, India, asserting their influence on world nations and economies? Here are a huge number of questions. Is BRICS truly an alternative for world economies or just a supplement? Are they a new vision for the same system? Will they change the world order? Another point are the BRICS also fail to follow the norms like R2Bs, and many issues like climate change and digital governance remain unsolved. Some BRICS countries are facing their own governance challenges, so when we look ahead, there may be some changes in the next 20 or 30 years. Who will be new actors in the reign? Who will take a greater role? Do we have an even more fragrant global order? One thing we should in mind is that governance systems should be both effective, fair, and inclusive due to the complex growing global challenges. Now, I would like to hear your talk on this. What kind of global governance do you really need? What should have a voice in shaping our shared future? Thanks for watching.